You know that feeling when everyone around you is smiling, but deep down, you know they're smiling at you, not with you. Yeah, that was my life. My name is Maya, and this is the story of how I turned their laughter into silence. The day karma finally spoke for me. I grew up in a small town. Nothing fancy, nothing glamorous, just ordinary. Our home was small, but my parents filled it with love and hope. They always said one thing that stayed with me: hard work never betrays you. But as I learned later, people do. Ever since I was little, I wanted to be a fashion designer. Not because I wanted fame or money, but because creating something beautiful out of nothing made me feel alive. I remember stitching my first dress for a local contest. The fabric was cheap, the cuts were uneven, but when I saw it finished, I felt proud. It wasn't perfect, but it was mine. I studied design at a small local college. It wasn't a big name, but it was enough for me. I worked part-time at a cafe to pay my fees and spent my nights stitching clothes for neighbors to save extra money, while others were out partying or posting pictures in fancy outfits. I was hunched over my sewing machine under a weak light, praying the electricity wouldn't go out when I looked at myself in the mirror. Tired eyes, messy hair, ink on my hands. I saw someone fighting for her dream. But when others looked at me, they only saw a struggling girl who didn't belong in their shiny world. At first, I thought Tina and Nisha were my friends. They used to come to my house, look through my sketches, and say how talented I was. Sometimes, they'd even borrow my designs for their own projects. I trusted them. I believed we were a team. But slowly, their compliments turned into jokes. It started small. Tina once laughed and said, "Maya, you still using that old sewing machine? It's so vintage." Nisha added, "Maybe someday your designs will reach a real boutique, if you ever get a real job." Their laughter stayed with me long after they left. I told myself to ignore it, that one day I'd prove them wrong. I believed when you're building your dream, you don't respond with anger, you respond with results. But then life decided to test me harder. In my final year, my father lost his job. Overnight, our world collapsed. We had bills to pay, and my college fees became a luxury we couldn't afford. I had no choice but to quit. Packing up my books that day felt like packing away a part of myself. I started stitching full-time just to keep my family afloat. That's when the real mockery began. Tina and Nisha launched a fashion page online. They called themselves self-made designers. They posted pictures from boutiques, coffee shops, and photo shoots, pretending to sketch on tablets. And behind my back, they made jokes about me. Someone once told me they called me the Tailor Girl. I laughed it off, but inside, it hurt. Then one night, a message popped up on my phone. It was a screenshot from their private group chat. If hard work made people rich, Maya would own Gucci by now. I read that line again and again until the words blurred. My hands shook. My heart sank. I wanted to scream, but no sound came out. That night, I cried quietly. Not because I was weak, but because I realized no one believed in me anymore. Not my friends, not my classmates, not even the people I once helped. But as I wiped my tears, a strange calm came over me. Maybe it was exhaustion, or maybe it was strength I never knew I had. I looked at the sewing machine in the corner, the same one they mocked, and whispered to myself, if they can laugh at my struggle, I'll make sure they never forget my success. That night, something inside me changed forever. I decided I wouldn't chase approval anymore. I'd build something so real, so powerful, that their laughter would one day sound like applause. Something changed in me after that night. I stopped looking for validation, and I stopped explaining myself to people who would never understand what it took to hold myself together. If they thought my life was a joke, let them laugh. One day, I would make sure that laughter would choke in their throats. From that moment on, I worked like my life depended on it. I took any order I could find. Bulk stitching from local stores, fixing torn clothes, sewing school uniforms, curtains, anything that could bring even a little money home. My hands became rough, my eyes burned from sleepless nights, but I kept going. Every stitch felt like defiance. Every piece I completed was a small victory. During the day, I was just the quiet tailor girl, hidden behind piles of fabric and threads. But at night, when the town went silent and everyone slept, I became something else. A dreamer with a burning purpose. Under the dim yellow bulb, I'd sit with my sketchbook, drawing designs until dawn. My inspiration wasn't luxury or celebrities. It was real people. The woman who carried her child while working at the market. The street vendor who smiled through exhaustion. The girl saving her pocket money for a single new dress. Every line I drew carried a story. Every curve held emotion. My art wasn't about perfection. It was about truth. Then one evening, while scrolling through my phone, an idea hit me. If I couldn't afford a boutique, I'd create my own space online. A place where my work could speak for itself. I created a small Instagram page and named it Threads of Hope. I didn't use my name or show my face. I just posted pictures of my designs on an old mannequin, writing captions about pain, dreams, and perseverance. For a while, nothing happened. My posts barely got a few likes. Sometimes I'd stare at my screen, wondering if anyone even cared. Maybe people only liked glamour, not grit. But I kept posting anyway, believing that one day, someone would see the beauty in my struggle. Then one afternoon, it happened. A local lifestyle blogger stumbled upon my page and shared one of my designs. She wrote, "You don't need to know who she is to feel her story." That single line changed everything. Within a day, my page exploded. Messages poured in from people across the country. Women told me they felt connected to my words, that my designs reminded them of their mothers, their daughters, their own silent battles. Some asked for custom orders. Others just sent messages of encouragement. For the first time, I felt seen, not as a failure or a poor girl chasing a dream, but as an artist, someone whose story mattered. Then one night, as I was replying to comments, a notification popped up. A message from a verified account, Ananya Kapoor, the creative director of a famous Mumbai fashion label. My hands froze as I read it. "Your designs are raw, emotional, and real. Would you like to collaborate on a new line?" I blinked, read it again and again. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. The same girl who had been mocked for sewing blouses in a corner was now being noticed by one of the biggest names in fashion. My heart pounded in disbelief. I felt my entire body tremble with joy, relief, and gratitude. For the first time in years, I allowed myself to breathe. Everything I had suffered for, every humiliation, every tear, it all made sense now. I wanted to run to my parents and tell them that their daughter was finally becoming someone. But just when I thought the storm had passed, the wind changed again. Success had barely knocked on my door when the ghosts of my past came back smiling. Tina and Nisha, the same girls who once mocked me, were suddenly back in my life, acting like we had never drifted apart. They messaged me, commented on my posts, saying how proud they were, how they always believed in me. I didn't reply. I didn't need to. Their words didn't hurt anymore. They just reminded me how far I'd come. Deep down, I smiled, because I knew this was just the beginning. Karma had found its rhythm, and I was only getting started. One afternoon, my phone rang from an unknown number. I almost ignored it, but something made me answer. It was Tina. Her voice was soft and cheerful, like sugar melting on a hot day. "Hey Maya, long time, girl. I saw your Instagram page. Amazing work. You've really grown," she said. Her laugh sounded light, but too polished, too smooth. I forced a polite smile, even though she couldn't see it. "Thanks, Tina. How are you?" I asked. She hesitated for a moment before saying, "Oh, great actually." Nisha and I were thinking, maybe we could collaborate with you. We're planning to start a new online brand, and your designs would be perfect." I stayed silent for a few seconds. These were the same girls who had laughed behind my back, who turned my dreams into their jokes. And now, when I had finally built something on my own, they wanted to join hands. Still, I agreed to meet them, not because I trusted them, but because I wanted to see what they were really up to. We met at a cafe, a cozy little place filled with the smell of coffee and quiet chatter. They walked in wearing expensive clothes and wide smiles, looking successful, confident, and fake. The way they greeted me felt rehearsed, like they'd practiced it in front of a mirror. They kept praising my work, calling me talented, hardworking, inspiring. I nodded politely, though my heart didn't buy a word. Tina leaned closer and said, "You've got the skill, Maya. We have the contacts. Together, we can dominate the market." Her tone was warm, convincing, almost tempting. For a moment, I wanted to believe her. Maybe they had changed. Maybe this was fate giving me another chance. But something deep inside whispered, "Be careful." I told them I'd think about it. Over the next few weeks, they stayed in touch, sending messages, ideas, and suggestions for future collections. They asked if I could share some sketches just to visualize the direction. I hesitated, but sent a few. Nothing major, just rough drafts and basic patterns. They thanked me and said we'd finalize things soon. Then suddenly they vanished. No replies, no updates, nothing. A few weeks later, as I scrolled through Instagram, I froze. There it was, their brand's new collection. The designs on their page were mine. Every color, every cut, every detail. Stolen straight from the sketches I had sent them. And the caption read, "Designed by Tina and Nisha, the new face of sustainable fashion." For a moment, I couldn't breathe. My heart sank. I stared at the screen, replaying every word of our conversation in my head. They hadn't wanted to collaborate. They wanted to take what I'd built. I messaged them right away, asking for an explanation. No reply. I emailed. Blocked. The next few days were torture. I barely slept or ate. My phone buzzed with notifications from followers tagging their page, congratulating them, saying how proud they were of their work. Each tag felt like a knife. I sat alone in my small room, surrounded by fabric and thread, staring at the walls that had witnessed my dreams being built, stitch by stitch. I wanted to scream. I wanted to expose them instantly. I even opened my story tab to post the proof, the sketches, the messages, everything. But my hand stopped midair. My anger was burning hot, but I knew this wasn't the way. They had stolen my work before, but this time, I wouldn't let them steal my peace too. I closed my phone, took a deep breath, and made a silent promise to myself. They would pay for this, not through arguments or public drama, but through something far greater. I would make them feel the same helplessness they had thrown at me. I didn't know how yet, but I knew one thing for sure. Their fake smiles were going to fade, and I'd be the one standing when they did. Revenge doesn't always come with noise. Sometimes it hides in silence, waiting for the perfect moment to speak. After the betrayal, I didn't lash out or post anything online. I didn't argue or try to defend myself. Instead, I started gathering everything that mattered. The screenshots of our chats, the emails, the messages where they'd asked for sample sketches, and the exact timestamps showing when I sent them my work. I printed everything, labeled every file, and stored them neatly in a folder. I wanted proof that couldn't be denied or twisted. Then, I disappeared. My Instagram page went quiet. No new designs, no stories, nothing. People started asking, "Where are you, Maya? Why aren't you posting?" I ignored the questions and kept my focus. Meanwhile, Tina and Nisha were everywhere, doing interviews, getting brand promotions, and even collaborating with influencers. The world saw them as fresh, rising designers. But I knew better. I knew what they were wearing was borrowed glory, stitched from my effort. As their fame grew, so did my silence. It wasn't weakness anymore. It was strategy. And then, when I least expected it, the universe handed me my chance. Ananya Kapoor, the creative director who had reached out to me before, messaged again. "Hey, are you okay? I noticed those designs on another page. Are they yours?" Her message hit me like a door opening. This was my moment. I told her everything, calmly, without drama, and sent her the proof. Every screenshot, every date, every design. The next morning, she called. "Maya, I want you to come to Mumbai," she said. My heart pounded. I had never been to Mumbai before, and the thought of walking into a glass building full of powerful people terrified me. But I packed my sketches, the printed evidence, and a few clothes into a small bag and boarded the train. The entire ride, I stared out the window, replaying everything in my head. The laughter, the insults, the night I cried alone, and the promise I made to myself. When I entered Ananya's office, I felt small for a moment. The place was all glass, polished floors, and designer shoes clicking around. But when I met her, she didn't treat me like I didn't belong there. She listened, flipped through my sketches, looked at the dates, and then looked at me. "Maya, people like them are what's wrong with this industry," she said firmly. "Let's make sure the world knows who the real designer is." We made a plan together. It wasn't about fighting or shouting. It was about truth. Ananya decided to launch a new collection using my original unreleased designs, the ones I had kept hidden after the betrayal. And she wanted it to be under my full name, Maya Sharma, independent designer. But there was one twist that made my heart race. She wanted to launch it at the same event Tina and Nisha were supposed to showcase their collection. That idea lit a fire inside me. This wasn't revenge through anger. It was justice through creation. I worked day and night to prepare every piece. The fabrics, the colors, the stitching. Everything had meaning. Ananya's team helped me refine my ideas and bring them to life. My designs finally looked the way they had always felt in my heart. Real, emotional, and powerful. We also made sure the evidence was ready. The team contacted a respected journalist and quietly handed over everything. The screenshots, the emails, the proof that showed exactly who designed those clothes. No one shouted or posted online. Everything was done quietly, carefully, and professionally. By the time the event week arrived, I felt a strange calm. I wasn't nervous anymore. I had already faced humiliation, betrayal, and heartbreak. What could possibly scare me now? This time, it wasn't about revenge. It was about reclaiming my voice. I had stitched every thread of pain into purpose, and I was ready to let the truth walk the runway on its own. The day of the fashion event was filled with noise and light, the kind that made the air hum with energy. Photographers crowded near the stage, flashes flickering like lightning, reporters whispering into microphones, and influencers posing for stories that would be forgotten by morning. I walked in quietly, blending into the crowd, my heartbeat steady but strong. I had waited for this day, not to fight, but to let the truth speak for itself. Tina and Nisha stood at the center of it all, radiant under the spotlights. Their smiles were flawless, their confidence unshaken. They greeted people, shook hands, and laughed as if the world belonged to them. Watching them from the corner, I felt no anger, only calm. I knew what was coming, and I didn't need to raise my voice to be heard. When their show began, the lights dimmed, and the music started with a pulse that matched my heartbeat. One by one, the models appeared, each wearing pieces that I recognized instantly. My designs, my sketches, my nights of work stitched into every line and fold. The audience clapped, their applause echoing through the hall like thunder. For them, it was a beautiful collection. For me, it was theft displayed under bright lights. When the final model walked off the stage, the crowd leaned forward for the Q&A session. Tina took the microphone, smiling wide, her voice confident as she spoke about her creative journey and inspiration. Her words floated through the air, rehearsed and empty. Then, from the audience, a voice rose above the applause. A reporter stood up. "Your designs are beautiful," he said, "but they look almost identical to sketches from an account called Threads of Hope. Would you like to comment on that?" The silence that followed was sharp. Tina froze. Nisha's smile faltered. "That's just coincidence," Tina muttered, forcing a laugh. "We were inspired by similar ideas." The reporter didn't back down. He pulled out printed pages. My posts, my captions, the dates. Proof laid bare for everyone to see. The whispers spread fast. Cameras turned, and I could see confusion and disbelief ripple through the audience. Then, Ananya's voice cut through the tension. She stood up and spoke clearly. "I can confirm these designs belong to Maya Sharma, the original creator. She will now present her collection." The crowd gasped. Every camera turned toward me. The light that once ignored me now fell directly on my face. My heart raced, but my steps were steady. As I walked to the stage, the music changed. My models began their walk, each piece crafted from pain, patience, and truth. The fabrics flowed like emotions finally released. The colors burned brighter under the lights, and the audience fell into silence. When the final model turned and paused, the room erupted. Applause filled the hall, rising like a wave that washed away every lie ever told. Reporters surrounded me, voices overlapping, questions flying. "How does it feel? What's your message?" I smiled faintly and said, "Truth doesn't need defending. It just needs time." As the flashes lit up the room, I saw Tina and Nisha slipping away through the side exit. Their faces were pale, their steps hurried. The attention they once craved now felt unbearable. The lights that once crowned them now revealed everything they had tried to hide. I stood still, breathing in the sound of applause that finally belonged to me. There was no anger left, only peace. Justice had arrived, quiet and certain, carried not by revenge but by truth. After that night, everything changed. My name began appearing in magazines and online articles. People calling me an inspiration, a survivor, a designer who turned pain into purpose. Opportunities started flowing in. Collaborations, interviews, sponsorships. But none of it compared to the feeling of finally being respected for who I was. I didn't crave fame. I only wanted to be seen for the work that had once been dismissed as worthless. Tina and Nisha's perfect image shattered piece by piece. Their followers dropped, sponsors pulled away, and whispers of plagiarism spread through the industry like wildfire. They tried to save face with fake apologies and teary posts, but no one believed them anymore. Justice had already done its work. One afternoon, as I was sketching in my studio, I saw a message pop up on my phone. It was from Tina. She wrote, "Maya, we made a huge mistake. Can we talk?" I looked at her words for a long moment, feeling nothing. The anger, the bitterness, the pain, they were all gone. What remained was calm, the kind that comes only after you've been broken and rebuilt stronger. I replied with one line, "I wish you the best, but I've moved on." Then I put my phone away and kept sketching. A week later, I went back home to visit my parents. The house looked smaller than I remembered, but it felt warmer. My father sat in the courtyard, reading the morning paper. When he saw me, he smiled with pride and held up the front page. My photo was printed there under the headline, "Maya Sharma, the designer who rose from betrayal." My mother came out from the kitchen, wiping her hands on her apron, her eyes shining with quiet joy. She looked at me and said softly, "They mocked your struggles, but they couldn't mock your spirit." Her words stayed with me. Standing there, surrounded by everything that had once felt too small for my dreams. I realized something simple but powerful. True revenge isn't about destroying others. It's about building yourself so strong that no one can touch you again. It's about peace, not payback. And in that moment, I finally understood that I hadn't just won against them. I had won against every doubt that ever tried to stop me. If there's one thing my story has carved deep into my heart, it's this. Never, ever let someone else decide what you're worth. People will always have opinions. They'll laugh at what they don't understand. They'll call your dreams unrealistic, your effort unnecessary, your struggle meaningless. They'll see you fighting quietly and mock you for not being loud enough. But what they'll never see is the fire that keeps you going when everything around you feels cold and unforgiving. Remember the days when I couldn't even look people in the eye because of the things they said about me. The whispers, the jokes, the backhanded compliments. All of it used to cut deep. I carried their words like weights tied around my ankles, pulling me down every time I tried to rise. But here's the truth. I learned the hard way. No one can destroy you unless you hand them the weapon. I stopped explaining myself, stopped chasing validation, and started building in silence. You see, revenge isn't about hurting others. It's about healing yourself so completely that their actions no longer matter. The moment you stop trying to prove your worth to those who never saw it, you set yourself free. I stopped wishing they would apologize. I stopped wishing they would understand my side. I realized that my success, my peace, and my confidence were the only answers they would ever need. When Tina and Nisha betrayed me, I thought it was the end of everything I had worked for, but now I see it was the beginning. Their betrayal didn't destroy me. It shaped me. It taught me how to stand on my own, how to protect my work, how to value my own name. Sometimes, the worst pain becomes the greatest teacher. Betrayal strips you bare. It forces you to meet the rawest version of yourself. When no one believes in you, you either break or you build. And I built. I built a new version of myself. From every insult, every failure, every sleepless night, I poured all my hurt into my work until my pain turned into art. That's the thing about struggle. It either hardens you or it polishes you. You get to choose which karma is strange. It doesn't rush. It doesn't warn. It moves silently, patiently, like a tide that pulls everything into balance. You can't control it, but you can trust it. I didn't seek revenge through anger. I let time do the work, and time didn't fail me. When the truth surfaced in front of the whole world, when their lies fell apart under the weight of their own greed, I didn't need to say a single word. Karma spoke for me, and when that moment came, that moment when the applause echoed for my name, not theirs, I didn't feel hatred. I felt peace. I realized that success hits harder when it's clean. You don't need to dirty your hands to rise. You just have to keep working when no one's watching. Today, when I look back, I don't see a victim anymore. I see a woman who walked through humiliation, loneliness, and betrayal, but still came out standing tall. I see someone who proved that resilience is louder than revenge. And if you're listening to this, maybe you've been through something similar. Maybe people laughed at your dreams, belittled your effort, or used you when it was convenient. Maybe you've been underestimated one too many times. If that's you, hear me clearly. You don't need to fight them. You don't need to waste your breath trying to convince them of your worth. Just keep going. Let your work be your voice. There will be days when it feels unfair, when you question why good people have to suffer before they rise. But that's how strength is built. In the quiet moments when no one's clapping for you, when no one sees your grind, when you're the only one who believes you still can, that's when your true foundation is formed. And when karma finally decides it's your turn, the universe rearranges itself to make space for you. It won't ask permission. It won't make announcements. It will just happen. Quietly, naturally, perfectly timed. The same people who mocked your effort will suddenly fall silent. The same mouths that once spread lies will whisper your name with awe. The same hands that pushed you down will clap for you, whether they like it or not. The sweetest part of justice isn't watching them fall. It's realizing you no longer care whether they do, because by then you'll have outgrown the pain they caused. You'll have built a life so full of purpose that their opinions no longer matter. That's when you'll truly understand what karma means. Not punishment, but balance. Not revenge, but release. I was once the girl they mocked for dreaming too high. The girl who was told she'd never make it beyond her small town. The girl who was laughed at for sewing clothes by hand, while others flaunted designer brands. But now, I'm the woman they whisper about. The one who turned her struggle into strength, her pain into progress, and her silence into power. So if you've been doubted, betrayed or underestimated, hold on. Your time is coming. Don't let bitterness poison your journey. Don't waste your energy wishing for their downfall. Just focus on your rise, because the best revenge isn't proving them wrong. It's becoming everything they said you couldn't be. And when that day comes, when you finally stand tall, when your name carries respect, when your work speaks louder than your wounds, you'll smile, not out of arrogance but gratitude, because you'll realize that every bit of pain had a purpose. Every betrayal had a lesson. Every mockery had a hidden blessing. So let them laugh now. Let them doubt. Let them call your dreams foolish. Because one day, when karma knocks on their door and yours opens wide to success, they'll finally understand what true regret feels like. And you'll finally understand what true peace feels like. That's the power of patience. That's the quiet justice of karma. And that's the legacy of never giving up on yourself, no matter who tries to break you along the way.